How's everybody doing? It has been so long since I have actually gone live. First of all, just live, and especially live by myself. I've been so busy doing all of the recordings for the Born to Lead docu series that I haven't even had the time to even come live. So let me turn my phone off. Okay. Okay. So for those of you that don't know me, I'm Dr. Jacqueline Kabay Harrison, and I am the host and producer of the A Queens Roundtable show and podcast. And underneath that umbrella is the Born to Lead docu-series and the Queens Spotlight. Right now, I am very busy with all of the interviews for the Born to Lead docu-series, which is awesome, by the way. I absolutely love those interviews. So yes, I've been really busy with that, but something just kind of hit my spirit. Um, and to be honest with you, I don't even remember what it was exactly that made me, kind of start thinking about this. But I didn't even really know how to title it. I guess you could probably see the title is They Don't Get It. And the biggest piece of that puzzle is just thinking about entrepreneurship, being an entrepreneur, and actually not even not and it's not even necessarily about the entrepreneurship piece. So let me just ramble for a second here, okay? Like I said, this isn't planned. This isn't something I was like, oh, I'm gonna go live and talk about this. This is just something that just kind of hit my spirit, just hit my heart, and I felt like I just wanted to share it. So like I said, not necessarily even talking about entrepreneurship in particular, but just when you begin to improve yourself, when you begin to, partake in personal, professional, some form of leadership development, some sort of leadership, personal or professional development, and some of the different things that we deal with, some of the different things that we encounter. That's really what I am actually addressing. And it's like I'm looking at this and it looks really weird here. There's a little section here on the screen that I have no idea why it looks so dark like that. That's weird. That's really weird. So I was sitting, like I said, I don't know if something I saw on TV or a conversation I had with someone, and I started to think about like my, let's say, immediate family. Let me just say I'll take my dad for example. He's no longer with us, but like let's just say if I was talking to him about something that I was doing, just in my life in general. Like I said, it could be my business, it could just be a new way of thinking, or maybe I had gotten a hold of a personal development tape or video on YouTube or something along those lines. And something was happening within me, something was changing, something that maybe I was excited about, I was proud of, some sort of positive change, right? And I remember just the different ways that he may respond. And it was based on who I was, who he knew me to be. It was based on who I was. What are we in 2025? Let's say if this is in 2023, the way he would respond was based on what he knew of me back in the 90s. Let's say early 90s, early mid 90s, right? And but yet I would be saying, I'd be thinking to myself that like, but I'm not that same person, almost like kind of begging and pleading, if you will, that I'm not that same person. I'm a different person now. And it appeared that for whatever the reason, he just was not able to either to accept that. Maybe he didn't want to accept that. So I just want to put that out there. I don't know if it was maybe he didn't want to, didn't wish to, didn't know how to, whatever the case is, right? It was very apparent that he didn't believe it or he didn't accept it, because he would continue to respond. Y'all know I always have to have my liquid here. It's such a dry mouth. But he would always respond based on, things that he knew of me before. And for some reason, I guess I just kind of, the reason I'm mentioning this, the reason I'm even going through all of this is because I truly, honestly believe that I'm not the only person going through something like this or experiencing something like this. It doesn't necessarily even have to be a parent, right? It could be a friend, it could be a sibling, right? But someone that has known the person you were before, the person you were back in the day. And I think that's why oftentimes it's easier to find support in individuals that only know you as who you are in your brand at this time, right? Like, who is Jackie in terms of, my brand, right? So I think it's easier to actually get support. Hold on, here come my son, y'all. Yes, young man. Oh, hey, how you doing, lady? Girl, I haven't done a live in I haven't done a live in so long that I'm sitting here. I'm like, I'm seeing the little words down there, but I'm like, okay, I can't even read it. And I'm trying to figure out how to bring it up. Oh, there it is. Okay, now I can see it. Okay, there we go. All right. Hey, how you doing, lady? So, like I said, you'll have to forgive me. It's been a long day. I'm just getting home. This just happened to be something that was just on my heart. So I feel like there are individuals that have known me with, through my brand, right? Through me showing up on Facebook, showing up on Instagram, LinkedIn, or whatever the case is, that have more respect and have an idea of who I am, right? Who I am as a brand, meaning who I serve, how I serve, and things of that nature, versus individuals that, like, family members, or friends that I've known since I was, I don't know, maybe 13 years old, middle school. And I think the shift is, even though you have grown, you have changed. This is how you have worked on yourself. You've gone to therapy. Maybe you've gotten a coach. Maybe, just maybe through reading some different literature and studying things of that nature, you have learned and grown as a person. But it doesn't mean that other individuals are going to acknowledge that, if that makes sense. And I know for me, that was a big, somewhat of a battle, kind of like, no, I'm not that same person. I need you to see me for who I am today, right? And the thing of it is, they may never see you for who you are today. They may still be stuck in the Jackie of 1993, let's just say, right? And I'm not saying it's good or bad, but you have to acknowledge that and be able to either basically address it and move on, or don't even address it and keep on going, right? Don't allow that to hinder you. Because I know initially, starting out, that was a big thing. Initially starting out as an entrepreneur, I think we're all a little nervous, right? We kind of get out there. Oh, yeah. Okay. So see, all right. So you kind of with me on this. Okay. Yeah, because I figured that I'm not the only one that has experienced this. And I know initially starting out in my business, that was very disheartening for me. very disheartening. I often thought that different family members were going to either, purchase my services, or if they didn't purchase my services, they would, bring other people and say, hey, I know someone that may be interested, or hey, maybe I can support you in this way. Or if you tell them how they can support you, they would just jump on and just be happy to do so, right? But what I've learned is that that's not always the case. For some people it is, but for a lot of us, it's not the case. Sometimes people don't, they just, to be honest, just don't care. They're not really concerned about what you're doing, much less trying to really support you. And again, not trying to throw any shade on anybody, but what I am saying is that you have to recognize that and basically move on and not allow that to cause you to throw in the towel, right? Because a lot of times, like, what happens? Like, we're in business, we're going outside of our comfort zone, we're very nervous, right? This is something different. So when we're going outside of our comfort zone, what do you naturally want to do? If you get excited about an idea, you want to go to maybe your brother, your sister, or your parent, or aunt, uncle, grandfather, let's just say, and say, hey, I got a great idea. I want to tell you this idea. And then when they start speaking to you, they don't receive it in that way. They start coming back with, well, what makes you think remember back in 1989 when you had this, I don't know, you had this project and you just abandoned the project. Remember that? Or remember this time when you couldn't blah, blah, blah. Or, I remember I bought you all this equipment back in the early 90s and you said you was going to use it, but you didn't. So do you think what makes you think you're going to be able to do it this time? Stuff like that. You be sitting there like, what? Like, that was 20, 25, 30 years ago. Like, I'm a different person now, and I found myself getting very like let down and just disappointed in that. And it wasn't very encouraging for me at all, and I even kind of found myself, really second doubting my ideas and if I should do it. And then I found myself looking at other individuals saying, like, wow, they have so much support, you know. I wonder, I just kind of feeling sorry for myself sometimes. I don't really have a lot of support, but the thing of it is, just like our childhood trauma, we're not responsible for our childhood trauma because we were children, right? But we are responsible as an adult for our healing. Just like as an adult, I'm responsible for my personal growth, for my professional growth, for my business, how I show up, right? If I recognize that I don't have support, when I say recognize it, call it out for what it is, deal with it, and move accordingly. Meaning, I began to join a lot of different Facebook groups. And at the time, my son was a lot younger. As he's 14 now. So, and I started my business in 2016. So, he's a lot younger then, he's a little guy. And as a matter of fact, he'd be popping in and out of my videos and stuff like that. Now, I couldn't pay him to join a video. If I paid him, he wouldn't join this video. So, but at the time, I was joining different groups that the individuals in it were mompreneurs from all over the country. And that was such a supportive, and it was multiple groups, but that was such a supportive environment. We're all out there, outside of our comfort zone, doing something different, encouraging one another, sharing resources. And it's like, we kind of like, we here, if I'm talking about a funnel or my next event or who's going to do my graphics and, what service am I using? What platform am I using? These were other individuals that were talking about the same thing, that understood that. So that was one huge piece of the puzzle. And the other piece of the puzzle is I have found that individuals that don't even know me, just met me a year ago, have been so supportive and so encouraging. Now, don't get me wrong. We all have to support ourselves. We got to be our own biggest cheerleaders. I'm not negating that at all. Okay. So I don't want you to think that. However, what I'm focusing on right now is the fact that baffled me. Like, let's say I write a book. I could have just women that I don't even know. I've had one or two conversations like, girl, tell me what can I get your book? Or I done bought your book, girl, it was really good, blah, 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 blah. Whereas a family member, it's like, okay, I published the book, the book is out. As a matter of fact, you see the books over here on the shelf. Like, you know what I mean? You don't even offer to support to even buy a copy or even take a copy. So I'm just saying, it's like that was mind-blowing to me, that people that don't even know me can support me, whereas people that I do know, that I've grown up with, that have raised me, things of that nature, do not. And a big piece of that puzzle, which is what I realize, is, again, they don't see you for who you are. Hence the title. They don't get it. They don't see Dr. Jacqueline Kabah Harrison, who is, providing a platform for women to obtain personal, professional, and leadership development, and how powerful that is, how important that is, right? They don't see any of that. Oftentimes they see, Jackie from, like I said, the early 90s, who will cut somebody off at the drop of a hat. Yeah, I did, y'all. I'm not gonna lie. If you said one thing at the side of your neck, I would tell you what I thought about what you said, where you could go, and then I was done. That was it. Okay. I've always had like a real fiery temper. Yeah. I'm just keeping it real, because I've always been very short statured, small in stature. So, and I, was always the smallest person. And I've learned very early on that I have to speak up. I may be the smallest person in the room, but I'm gonna project my voice so that everyone knows, hey, I'm here and this is what I need. Right? So that's what I got used to doing. So, but at any rate, that was my MO. So to my family, like I said, I'm, a hothead. I go off on people. I don't like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Just a lot of those types of things. There was a lot of negative things that were associated with my quote unquote bossy personality. Whereas now that, I've grown, I've learned more about myself, I'm still strong spirited and things of that nature, but I've learned how to say things better. I've also learned that everything doesn't have to be said, whereas that wasn't my motto back in the mid 90s. Okay. It wasn't no everything don't have to be said. Everything had to be said. If it was in my mind, if it was up here, it was gonna be said. But that's who they see me as. They're stuck there. They're stuck back in the 90s. So because they're stuck in the 90s, I'll let them stay there. You know what I mean? You stay there. I'm here. 2023, 2024, 2025, right? Hey, I've taken advantage of personal development. And hey, if you don't want to come on into 2025 and start to see me for the person that I am today, right? After my personal development, my professional development, my therapy, my insight, my being self-reflective, my journaling, the work that I've done. If you don't want to see me and respect me for the person that I am today, then you need to, you stay on there in the 90s. You know what I mean? And I've had to learn to be okay with that. And again, to be able to understand it. And I think that that's oftentimes, I'm not going to say all because nothing is ever inclusive, but I think that often that's what's happening. For those individuals that don't have a very supportive, circle around them, I think that oftentimes those people see them for who they used to be and don't see any sort of improvement or any sort of growth or development. It's not because it's not there. It's because they don't want to see it. They can't move past it. And that's their issue and their problem, so to speak, right? But I don't want that to hinder anyone from taking that leap, taking that step, and to keep going. Even if things aren't manifesting in your life, whether it be your business, whether it be a relationship, whether it be that new house you want, traveling the world, whatever the case is, even though it may not be, at your footsteps right now, continue to plant those seeds, even if other people don't get it, even if other people don't see it. Keep going. Don't give up. You have to be able to believe in yourself and your vision. Just because other people doesn't see it doesn't mean that it's not possible. Because a lot of times we get excited, we have an idea, we go to someone, we want to talk to them about it, and they may meet us instead of with, girl, yeah, that's a good idea. Da, da, da. What can I do to help? We may get met with all sorts of obstacles. Well, it's a real hard market out there right now. There's a lot of other people doing that. Or, girl, it's a recession. Nobody have no money for that. Whatever the case is, right? Sometimes we get met with those types of things, and that's fine. Again, let them stay there, but don't you take all of that on, because a lot, if you allow it, and I'm not saying people have ill intentions, sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't have ill intention. But that's just what's on the inside of them. They're operating from a place of fear. They're operating from a place of self-doubt, and if a place of where things aren't possible. And that's really what it boils down to. Because in order to be an entrepreneur, or in order to do any sort of personal, professional development, you have to believe that there is a better version of yourself, a better life for yourself, and that it's attainable. Otherwise, why would you be doing anything that you're doing, right? Why, if you didn't believe it was possible? So for some individuals, if they don't even believe it's possible for themselves, so they can't believe it's possible for you. But don't get stuck there. Don't stay there. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share. Like I said, I was either having a conversation, I saw something on TV, whatever the case was, and it just, a light went off, and I was like, you know what? That's why. Because they're stuck. They're stuck on who you used to be, and based on who you used to be, they feel like they can define your potential. And first of all, nobody can define your potential. Only you and your God or your creator can define your potential. But that don't stop people from trying to do it. That does not stop them. All right. So that's what I wanted to say. And like I said, that was just kind of weighing heavy on me. And I know that has been helpful for me. So I just wanted to share that. So I want to say, make sure you check out the Born to Lead docuseries. The episodes are so awesome. I'm going to be releasing them one by one. We have another one coming up. Well, I just had one on the 18th. Well, for the past, I think 3 weeks, I've been releasing new episodes. So I got another new episode coming out this upcoming Sunday. I think it's the 24th, I think. The only break we're going to have is for Father's Day. Because I know a lot of people don't, busy doing things with their family. So we took a break for Mother's Day. We'll take a break for Father's Day. But other than that, every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, make sure you jump onto the Realizing Your Potential TV network and check out all of the other episodes of the Born to Lead docuseries, as well as all the other content that's on there. All right. We also have video on demand, as well as the audio on demand, which is the Thought Leaders Podcasters channel, I think is what I have it titled, Thought Leaders Podcasters channel. But at any rate, make sure you go onto the app. You can get it. You can actually download the app off of Apple TV, Roku TV, Amazon Fire, as well as the Android app and the iOS app. You can still check us out too or on Spotify and Apple Podcasts too. But I much prefer you download the app and leave us an awesome review that will help us to get noticed and for our content to get pushed out in front of more viewers. All right. So thanks again, everybody. And y'all take care. And I will see you soon. Make sure you tune in on Sunday, all right, at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right. Bye-bye now.